Most watches can be criticized, and criticism is usually accurate, but these 10 watches are the exceptions. Not because they are perfect, but because, despite everything thrown at them, these watches are still standing at the end. Let us begin. Number 10. Casio G-Shock DW5600. When the argument against the G-Shock DW5600 starts, it always sounds the same. It's plastic. It's digital. It's not really a watch. No serious collector would wear one. Then someone asks the follow-up question: when did it last fail? The silence that follows is the entire argument. Kikuo Ibe spent 2 years in 1981 and 1982 dropping prototype watches from the third floor of Casio's building in Tokyo until a case design emerged that could survive the impact without losing time. The solution was a suspended inner structure. The module floats inside the outer case on shock-absorbing mounts rather than sitting against it directly. The crystal is recessed inside the case rather than flush with it. The back of the case curves inward to protect against hard surfaces. The watch launched in 1983, and the design has not fundamentally changed because there was nothing left to change. In 2026, the DW5600 has 200 meter water resistance, a 2-year battery, a digital display readable in every light condition, an auto EL backlight, 5 daily alarms, a countdown timer, and a stopwatch accurate to 1/100th of a second. The shock resistance exceeds any mechanical watch at any price. Special Forces units worldwide wear it during operations. Billionaires wear it at weekends. The watch community wears it and then slightly regrets admitting how much they like it. Warren Buffett was photographed in one. So was the head of Casio's own design team, who owns more expensive watches and reaches for the DW5600 when it matters. The community's forum argument against the DW5600 runs one sentence before it fails: I prefer a mechanical movement. That is a preference. When you remove preferences from the analysis and ask only whether the watch does what it claims, the DW5600 has no answer that is not yes. It costs around $100. Its critics gave up in 1984 and have been buying them ever since. From the indestructible entry to the mechanical watch that taught a generation what in-house actually means. Number 9. CK05 Sports SRPD Series. The forum criticism of the Seiko 5 Sports SRPD has been consistent for 5 years. The Hardlex crystal scratches with daily wear. Hardlex is superior to standard mineral glass and inferior to sapphire, and with honest daily use, it accumulates micro scratches within months. That is the complaint. The entire complaint. The community's response turned that one valid criticism into one of the largest watch modification ecosystems on Earth. A sapphire crystal replacement for the SRPD platform costs approximately $30. Installing it teaches you what a gasket does. Swapping a bezel insert teaches you the difference between a 6-0 click and a 1-2-0 click. Changing a dial teaches you how the movement connects to the case architecture. Thousands of owners have learned watchmaking not by reading reviews, but by opening the case and finding the 4R36 caliber inside. The 4R36 has hacking seconds. The hand stops when you pull the crown, letting you synchronize to a time signal. It has hand winding. It runs in the range of 10 to 15 seconds per day, which is honest automatic watch accuracy at this price. The exhibition caseback shows the rotor spinning with every movement of the wearer's arm. The 100-meter water resistance is real and tested. A watch whose only community complaint generates a thriving repair culture that costs $30 to resolve is not a watch with a complaint. It is a watch with a community. The critics tried. They found one thing. The owners fixed it and called it a feature. From the platform watch to the Swiss watch that made integrated bracelets democratic. Number 8. Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. Let me give the critics their best shot. At the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80, the secondary market data is genuinely bad. The watch retails at around $750. On the gray market and secondhand platforms, it trades between $375 and $500. Watch Charts gives it an extreme risk rating for secondary market depreciation. Reddit threads document the 45% loss from retail to secondhand in detail that the watch press rarely mentions. If you buy a PRX Powermatic at retail today and try to sell it in a year, you will lose approximately $400. That is real. That is documented. That is the critic's ammunition. Now here is why that ammunition hits the wrong target. The depreciation is a retail pricing problem. The watch, the physical object, has almost no valid criticism from any owner who has actually worn it. The Powermatic 80 movement delivers 80 hours of power reserve, a Nivacron balance spring with genuine magnetic resistance, and a sapphire crystal at a price where mineral glass is the default. The case finishing combines polished and brushed surfaces in proportions that owners consistently describe as well executed, far beyond the price tier. The bracelet integration at the lug is cleaner than competing watches at twice the cost. The 1978 PRX was Tissot's original response to the integrated sports watch. When the brand revived it in 2021, it was making the visual language of watches that cost $10,000 available for $750. The watch does that. The watch earns that. The depreciation is Tissot's fault for flooding the catalog with 50 plus variants until the hype collapsed. That is not a complaint about what you are wearing. The test is to remove the resale value consideration entirely. Just wear the object. Forum threads from owners who have done exactly that produce one consistent finding. They love it. Buy it because you love it. The critics were arguing about resale. That is not the watch talking. From the integrated bracelet value champion to the watch the military chose when it had every option available. Number 7. Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical. The argument against the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical starts with the things it does not have. No date, no automatic winding, no water resistance beyond 50 meters, no exotic case material, no heritage story that runs back to Geneva or La Chaux-de-Fonds, no manufacture movement made by Hamilton's own engineers. Strip those away, and what is left is an ETA 6,497 to 1 movement in a 38mm steel case with a canvas strap and a military dial that has been telling accurate time, without asking for anything in return, since 1998. The ETA 6,497 to 1 is not a compromise movement. It is a large format caliber derived from pocket watch architecture, running at 18,000 vibrations per hour, because slower beat rates put less wear on the components per year. The accuracy is typically 2 to 5 seconds per day, better than many automatic movements at 3 times the price. Watchmakers describe it as the most satisfying movement to service at the price. Parts are available everywhere. The architecture has been proven for 70 years. Manual winding is the feature critics call an inconvenience. It is a 30-second daily interaction with a mechanism that most watch owners never experience directly. For the people who accept it, the winding ritual is the point, the tactile acknowledgement that the watch is a machine, not a battery-powered accessory. The Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical divides buyers into exactly 2 groups: those who want automatic winding, who should buy something else, and those who want this specific experience, for whom nothing else delivers it at this price. The watch community cannot criticize the object. The professional reviewers who included it in their lists included it because their search for a flaw kept ending at the same place. The watch does what it claims, completely without excess. That is not a failure of imagination. That is the result. 4 watches from $100 to $500. No moving parts have failed, no standards have been faked, no market has corrected the hype. The next 6 are where the price goes up and the scrutiny gets harder. Which of these 4 surprises you most? Drop it below. From military reliability to the watch that runs for 20 years without asking anything in return. Number 6. Citizen ProMaster EcoDrive Diver. The argument against the Citizen ProMaster EcoDrive Diver starts and ends in the same place. It is not a mechanical movement. Some collectors treat this as categorical disqualification from serious consideration. That preference is legitimate and not something I will argue against. There is a philosophical difference between a solar-powered quartz and a self-winding mechanical. If the movement architecture matters to you, the Citizen ProMaster is not your watch. Every other argument against it collapses on contact with the facts. The ISO 6425 certification the ProMaster carries is the international standard for professional dive. Instruments: 200. Meter water resistance under test conditions. Anti-magnetic resistance to a defined level. Shock resistance. Luminescence that allows reading in complete darkness after 2 minutes with no light source. This is not a consumer marketing badge. You cannot apply for it, pay for it, or negotiate it. The watch either passes the independent tests or it does not. The ProMaster passes. The Italian Navy issues it as standard equipment, not as a backup watch for personnel who cannot get something better. As the standard issue dive watch for a Navy that has access to every watch in production. The EcoDrive photovoltaic cell converts any light, natural sunlight, office fluorescent lights, a bedside lamp, into electrical energy stored in a rechargeable cell. 6 months of reserve on a full charge. 8 months in power-saving mode. No battery replacement. Ever. Long-term ownership reports across Reddit and Quora document examples running accurately after 2025, and in one documented case, 28 years of ownership without service or battery replacement. This is not exceptional in the Citizen ProMaster community. It is the expected outcome. It is not a mechanical movement, is the critics' one sentence. The Italian Navy's standard issue designation and 28 years of accurate timekeeping are the response. The critics have not improved on that exchange, from maintenance-free to moon-tested. The Speedmaster's critics have been trying for 60 years. The moon already answered. Number 5. Omega Speedmaster Professional. The criticism of the Omega Speedmaster Professional begins with the Caliber 3000, 861's accuracy. Some examples run at +5 to 7 seconds per day, warmer than the watch's own stated specification. The Hesalite crystal scratches and requires polishing every few years. The tachymeter scale on the bezel is decorative for most owners, who have never used it to calculate average speed over a measured distance. The manual winding requires the same daily commitment as the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical, without the Hamilton's price advantage. The retail price has increased steadily, and the current Moonwatch edition in its coaxial master chronometer configuration costs over $7,000. These are real criticisms. Every one of them is documented and accurate. Now the context. In 1965, NASA subjected 6 watch brands to 11 standardized tests. Temperature extremes from -4 to +160 Fahrenheit. Humidity at 95%. Oxygen pressure reduction, high vacuum. Shock at 40 times the force of gravity. Vibration. Acceleration. Decompression. High pressure in oxygen environment. The Rolex Submariner was tested. The Longines Ultrachron was tested. The Bulova Accutron was tested. The Hamilton chronograph was tested. The Omega Speedmaster was tested. Only the Speedmaster passed all 11 tests. The others failed 1 or more. The astronauts wore the Speedmaster to the moon. On the 13th of April, 1970, Apollo 13's oxygen tank exploded en route to the moon. The command module lost power. The crew moved to the lunar module, which was designed for 2 people for 2 days, not 3 people for 4 days. To get home, they needed to fire the descent engine for 14 seconds at a precise moment to correct the spacecraft's trajectory. The guidance computer was powered down to conserve energy. Jack Swigert used the Speedmaster to time the burn manually. The burn was accurate. The crew survived. The critics' argument, warm accuracy, soft crystal, expensive, is an argument about the watch's peacetime performance from a watch that was once asked to perform in conditions none of its critics will encounter. The moon answered. Apollo 13 answered. The criticism has been composing its response for 55 years and has not improved on those 2 answers. From the moon to the Aqua, the Omega that the community agrees on, but nobody talks about enough. Number 4. Omega Aquaterra. The interesting thing about the Omega Aquaterra is that it generates almost no forum discussion. Not negative discussion. Not controversy. not is it worth it. Threads running to 600 replies. Near silence. From one of the world's most discussed watch brands on one of their most technically accomplished references. The reason is not obscurity. The Aquaterra is broadly known. The reason is that there is genuinely almost nothing to argue about. The Aquaterra, in its current coaxial master chronometer configuration, carries METOS certification, tested by the Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology, to 0 to +5 seconds per day in 6 positions, anti-magnetic resistance to 15,000 Gauss, and ISO 6425, compliant water resistance. The certification is issued by an independent Swiss government body with no commercial relationship with Omega. The result is published, documented, and verifiable by anyone who wants to check. The watch does something unusual for a dress-to-sport crossover. It earns both categories, rather than compromising between them. The case is slim enough to sit under a cuff. The bracelet integration is clean and contemporary. The dial options run from the horizontal striped teak pattern, inspired by yacht decks, which divides opinion and provides the critics their only consistent aesthetic ammunition, to cleaner solid variants that generate almost no reaction at all. The coaxial escapement inside reduces the service requirement compared to a standard lever, because the geometry of the impulse removes the need for constant lubrication contact at the pallet fork. 10-year service intervals. The forum threads that discuss the Aquaterra tend to run short, not because the watch is uninteresting, because reviewers who go in looking for a critique come out with one paragraph about the teak dial and nothing else. One paragraph. After all these years of trying. That is the Aquaterra's forum record. The critics have not got much on it. The watch has METOS documentation and 10-year service intervals. From the watch that ends arguments to the watch that ended the search. Number 3, Rolex Explorer 3 6124270. The Rolex Explorer 36 criticism is the most revealing on this list because it follows such a predictable arc. Phase 1. It is boring. It has no complications, almost no text on the dial, no date, no bezel function. For $7,000, you are paying for the Rolex name on a 3-hand watch. Phase 2. The 36mm case is too small. The market has moved. Nobody in 2026 needs a watch this modest at this price. Phase 3. The person who made both arguments, 6 to 12 months later, owns a 124270 and wears it more than anything else in their collection. Forum threads document this trajectory so consistently that the community has given it a name, the Explorer effect. The watch that looks modest in photographs refuses to be modest on the wrist. The 36mm case, at 47.6mm lug to lug, wears with a presence the numbers cannot explain. The caliber 3230 inside runs at -2 to +2 seconds per day, Rolex's own superlative chronometer standard, applied to the complete cased movement rather than a bare caliber in a laboratory setting. The 904L stainless steel holds its polished surfaces longer than the 316L used by almost every other manufacturer. The dial has 3 markers, the 3, 6, and 9 Arabic numerals, that the original designers placed there for legibility in the dark caves and glaciers that Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary were wearing early explorers near in the 50s. Every detail was chosen for a reason and has been validated for 70 years. The community calls this watch the end of the search, not as marketing, as a description of what actually happens to people who buy it. They stop looking. They put away the lists. The watch that generated 2 threads of criticism before purchase generates 0 threads of dissatisfaction after it. The critics have arguments. The owners have no complaints. The rate at which one group becomes the other is the Explorer's most impressive specification, and nobody publishes it anywhere because it doesn't have a reference number. From the watch that converts its critics to the watch whose METOS document answers the argument before it starts. Number 3, 0.5 Tudor. Black Bay 58. The critics of the Tudor Black Bay 58 come with 2 arguments. First, it is a Rolex substitute for people who cannot afford the real thing. Second, the earlier references ran Sellita-based movements that were competent but not impressive. Both arguments have an expiry date: 2024. The current Black Bay 58 master chronometer runs the caliber MT5402, certified by the Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology, the same government body that certifies the Omega Seamaster at twice the price. Independently tested, magnetic field resistance to 15,000 Gauss, and it costs $3,500. The BB-58's dimensions were drawn from 1,958 Tudor case proportions: 39 mm, 11.9 mm thick, 47 mm lug to lug. In an era when every significant diver runs 41 to 44 mm with 12 to 15 mm of case height, the BB-58 sits under a shirt cuff. The Folkstina Lume Tint, the cream-colored Super Luminova that mimics aged radium, divides opinion and is the one consistent aesthetic complaint from owners who wanted cleaner white. Everything else survives examination. The community argument that it is a Rolex substitute collapses against the specifications. A Metis-certified manufacture movement at $3,500 is not a consolation prize. It is a different product with different credentials at a different price. Fratello's direct comparison with the Submariner 124060 concluded the Rolex still sets the case and dial finishing standard. Rolex is Rolex after all. It also concluded the BB-58 is not a compromise. It is a different answer. The critics who call it a substitute have not read the Metis document. From the Metis-certified diver to the watch whose only complaint is that you need a relationship to buy it at retail. Before we move on to the next part, let me tell you this. Most people don't realize this, but buying a watch the wrong way can cost you thousands, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. You walk into a store or browse online, and everything looks the same, but behind the scenes, there's a system. Prices aren't always fair, availability is controlled, and one bad decision can leave you overpaying for something that doesn't even hold its value. That's why I created a complete free insider guide to buying watches. Inside, you'll find the best watches to buy, the watches to avoid, and how to choose a watch that actually fits your style and budget long term. The goal is simple. I'll help you stop guessing and start buying smart. You'll find the free guide in the pinned comment and description. Now, let's move on to the next part. Number 2, Omega Seamaster 300M. I want to be precise about what the Metis certification on the Omega Seamaster Professional 300M actually represents, because the word certified gets misused in watch marketing constantly. The Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology, Metis, is an independent Swiss government body. Its budget comes from the Swiss federal government. It has no commercial relationship with Omega or any watch brand. It administers the Master Chronometer Certification Program, which it developed collaboratively with Omega in 2015, but the tests are conducted by Metis staff, not by Omega staff. The pass or fail result is Metis's call. The certification requirements: 0 to +5 seconds per day in 6 positions. Anti-magnetic resistance to 15,000 Gauss, more than the field strength of most MRI machines at distance. ISO 6425. Compliance for professional diving to the stated depth. Power reserve performance after full magnetic exposure. The Seamaster 300M passes all of these as a complete cased watch, not as a movement tested on a bench. The Rolex Submariner's superlative chronometer is self-administered. Rolex tests its own movement to its own standard inside its own facility. The results are tight. -2 to +2 seconds per day is a demanding specification, and Rolex's quality control is not in question. The distinction is not quality. It is who signed the document. The Seamaster certificate was signed by a government institute. The Submariner's was signed by the brand that makes the watch. One of the complaints about the Seamaster 300M is that the wave pattern dial in the classic reference is considered busy by some owners. The bracelet micro-adjustment requires a small screwdriver rather than a tool-free mechanism. The ceramic bezel insert looks slightly flatter than the Rolex equivalent under certain lighting angles. These are genuine observations from genuine owners. None of them are about the watch failing to perform to its stated specification. The critics have aesthetics. The Seamaster 300M has a government document, a James Bond association that started in 1995 and has not diminished since, and ISO 6425 professional dive certification. That combination has been criticized for 30 years. The critics are still working on landing a punch that lands on the watch rather than on their own preferences. From the government certified to the most examined luxury object in the history of consumer goods. Number 1. Rolex Submariner, Ref. 124060. Let me tell you every credible complaint the watch community has produced against the Rolex Submariner. 124,060 inches, 2026. The retail price is $9,500. Accessible only through an AD with an established purchase history, or on the gray market at a premium that varies by market conditions. The 21mm lug width limits aftermarket strap options compared to the standard 20mm that most third-party manufacturers make for. The 124060 has no date. The 126610LN has one and costs more. The glide lock clasp adjusts in 2.5mm increments, which some find less granular than the Omega Seamaster's tool-free mechanism. The Mercedes Hour Hand, the hand with the broad paddle and the circle cutout at the tip, has divided collector opinion for decades, with a minority always finding it oversized. That is the list. The complete and total list of every substantive criticism the global watch community brings to this specific watch in any forum, in any year, in any language. Notice what is not in that list. Nothing about the movement. The caliber 3000. 230 runs at -2 to +2 seconds per day, tested on the complete cased watch. Nothing about the case finishing. The 904L stainless steel case and bracelet have been photographed at macro scale by communities whose purpose is to find the flaw that lesser brands left behind. They look for the edge that was not finished, the marker that was not applied straight, and the lug that was not polished to the transition. Yet they consistently find nothing to criticize. Nothing about the Cerachrom ceramic bezel, which is functionally scratch-proof under any use condition a civilian will encounter. Nothing about the 300-meter water resistance. Nothing about the 70-hour power reserve. Nothing about the screw-down crown, the trip-lock sealing system, or the oyster case architecture. The Rolex Submariner 124060 has been in continuous production, under various references, since 1953. The watch community has applied the hardest scrutiny available to any luxury consumer object for 67 years. The complaints they produced fit in a short paragraph. None of them describe the watch failing. After 67 years of people trying, that is the Submariner's record. The critics found the access problem, the price, and one man's preference about a hand shape. The watch itself? Still standing. 10 watches. One test applied at every price point, from $100 to $10,000. Give the critics everything. The forum threads, the watch charts data, the Reddit ownership reports, the secondary market pricing, the independent certification documents, the macro lens photographs. Give them every piece of ammunition that exists. Then ask, what is left standing against the object itself? For the G-Shock, the critics had, I prefer mechanical. That is a preference. Not a complaint about a watch that survived building falls and special forces deployments and 35 years of people trying to find the failure. The watch is still standing. For the Seiko 5, the critics had a scratching crystal. The community turned that into a $30 fix and a repair culture that has taught more people about mechanical watchmaking than any professional review ever managed. The watch is still standing. For the Tissot PRX, the critics had genuine secondary market depreciation. Documented, accurate, 45% from retail. But that is a retail pricing failure, not an object failure. The watch on the wrist of the owner who stopped checking watch charts has almost no complaints. The critics aimed at the wrong target. For the Hamilton, the critics had not complicated enough. For $500, a watch running 2 to 5 seconds per day from an over-engineered movement with a 70-year parts history failed the complexity test. The argument ran out of material before it landed. For the Citizen ProMaster, the critics had one sentence. It is not mechanical. The Italian Navy's standard issue designation and 28-year ownership reports were the response. The exchange has not changed in 20 years because there is nothing left to add to it. For the Speedmaster, the critics had a warm caliber and a soft crystal. The Moon answered. Apollo 13 answered. The critics are composing a better follow-up question. They have been composing it since 1970. For the Aqua Terra, the critics had a striped dial, one aesthetic preference against a government-issued METAS certificate and a 10-year service interval. The watch generated almost no forum discussion at all because the critics ran out of material before they started typing. For the Explorer 36, the criticisms had boring and too small. Then they bought one and stopped posting. The community named the phenomenon after the watch. The Explorer effect is the conversion rate from critic to owner, and no other watch in this price range has one. For the Seamaster, the critics had a busy dial and a screwdriver clasp adjustment. Against a Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology certificate and 30 years of cultural association that the critics have been unable to dent. The critics have aesthetics. The Seamaster has a government document. For the Tudor BB58, the critics called it a Rolex substitute. The METAS certification at $3,500 called it something else. The critics have not read the document. For the Submariner, the critics had the access problem, the price, the lug width, and the hand shape. After 67 years of the most thorough scrutiny applied to any luxury consumer object, that is the entire list. They went looking for the flaw in the object. They came back with a paragraph about the AD relationship. Strip away access, pricing, personal preference, and resale value. Ask only, does the object do what it claims? Does it fail the person wearing it? 10 watches passed that test. The critics are still working on the follow-up question. The watches stopped waiting for it a long time ago. Some of them stopped waiting in 1953. One of them stopped waiting before the critics were born. Drop it below. Which watch silenced the critic in you? Which one are you reconsidering right now? I read everything. Like this video and subscribe.